Good morning, hello, welcome to this, our second webinar from Protel Associates. Leverage your project database, getting the most out of MyProtel. It's great to see so many of you here. We've got a few more still to join, I think, so a few points of housekeeping. I'm joined today by my colleagues Debbie Brune and Nina Allwood. Debbie and Nina are our account management team. Debbie fronts up mostly the UK and Ireland and looks after our client base there, and also the US and some other countries. Nina looks mainly after continental Europe and rest of world. So the format today, we're going to be doing a 15-minute presentation. That's going to be led by Debbie. She's going to be going through the main features, top tips, kind of things to avoid in terms of your MyProtel subscription, and really just focus on the features that will enable you to get the most out of your subscription and really to succeed, and that's what we want. After that, we're going to move to a 45-minute-ish Q&A session where you guys will have your chance to put any questions you have about your individual subscription or circumstances, or any problems or challenges that you're currently facing you want to put to us via a question. That's absolutely fine. Please feel free to submit those questions via the question pane over on the right hand side of your screen. Now, it's important to note that the slides will be made available at the end of the presentation, and we'll also send out a recording of the session too for you to review in your own time. Details are on the screen there on slide 1, so if you do wish to connect with any of us on LinkedIn or send us a question that we haven't perhaps got time for today, then that's absolutely fine. Please feel free to use those details. Okay, I think that's everything. So without further ado, over to you, Debbie.
Hello again, everybody. Most of you should be familiar with MyProtel, so some of what I covered today you may well be aware of, but hopefully there will be some new informational tips that will actually help you in the future. One of the common issues we see from talking to our subscribers is volumes of data. It can appear very daunting, a bit like having a mountain to climb. Whilst every subscriber's access is unique, some might see 15 to 20 projects a week, others may be seeing 90 to 100. Whatever the volume, the key thing is to quickly and efficiently break the data down into manageable chunks so you do not find yourself in the situation of feeling totally overwhelmed. There are some very simple features in MyProtel that will help you to do this. So let's have a look. There are two key areas to MyProtel: latest project updates here and search here. The latest project updates tab is a weekly snapshot of the projects we've published that week, and the search screen is where you can interrogate the system and all the projects fully. A mistake some people make when they first subscribe is to actually only focus on the latest project update screen and the projects being published from that day forward, and they forget there's a wealth of other data sat within the system. So if you subscribe this week, for example, projects that we were publishing last week, last month, even many months ago, will still have real value to you, so should be sought out. So let's look at the latest project updates to focus on the weekly data first. There are two categories of projects: new and updated / revised. The new projects always appear at the top of the screen here, and they will always have a first issued, last updated date the same. As we scroll down, we can start to see that these dates change. So you can see down here projects where the dates are obviously different as we've revised them. The new projects are published the same time each week, so they're ready for you on a Thursday morning. The updated projects will be trickle-fed, so will appear daily. We would recommend that you make some time available each week to spend a few minutes browsing the projects, deciding which ones have your name on, then using the tracking or archiving features available. So those are the two features I'm going to show you first. So to track a project, we need to first click on the relevant project. We do that via the project bulletin number. The tracking feature is here, so you can simply click on "You are not tracking this project." That project now has a watch on for you. Essentially what that means is we will come and tell you when it's next been updated, so you don't actually have to remember to log in and check. You'll get an email from us. You won't be overwhelmed with emails. If there are 10 tracked projects that are updated today, you'll only get one email with 10 links, which will take you straight through to those projects that have been updated. There are a couple of other benefits to tracking as well. You can easily access your tracked projects at the click of a button, which you can do either here by going to your list of tracked projects, or you can do here through the home screen by looking at your tracked projects here. The other benefit is, as you can see now, is that the project bulletin number has gone red. And whilst that seems very simplistic, what that means is when you're running searches through the system, anything that's red, you know you're tracking, so you essentially don't need to open because you've already keeping an eye on that project. So that's tracked, really valuable. The other thing that you can do is actually archive a project. This is quite underutilised, I feel, but actually not every project we publish will be relevant to you, nor can you physically follow them all up. So to declutter your screen and your search results, you have the option to archive a project. The project doesn't disappear from your system. Basically, it actually just removes it and puts it into another area. So when you run a search, you don't have that constant battle of opening projects that you've already read and thought that one's not for me. So it is really underutilised, but is really valuable in my opinion. As I say, there's nothing more frustrating than running a search, opening a project and thinking, I read that last week and I'm not interested. So archive away. If you do make a mistake, you can actually unarchive it and put it back in the system. And again, you can view your archive projects here, or again via the home page here. And if we just quickly go into archive projects, that's where you can unarchive and actually put it back in the system. So when we go back to look at latest project updates now, we'll see that this project that we were looking at is no longer appearing on the screen. So it's decluttered it, it's removed it, and it's all about helping you to actually reduce the chunks of data you're looking at. So two key features, tracking and archiving. Both help reduce volumes, will keep your key opportunities in front of you, which is essential. Now I want to move on to the search page and look at another feature that I also think will help you, which is saved searches. So if we now go to the search tab, before I show you how to save a search, I just want to quickly say to you, anything on this screen, you can search our data by. Okay, so all of these, you can run a search. Now I'm to show you how to save a search, I'm going to just pick a search that I use quite frequently. I'm interested in looking at projects for Glaxo. I only want to look at projects that are active, so something that is either pre-sanctioned or sanctioned. So you can populate the company, you can choose the status, you can hit the search button. And there you have 33 results for that particular search. If Glaxo are a company that you're interested in and you want to keep your eye on, you can now work through this search and you can actually archive and track if you want. But if it's just a search you just want to keep an eye on, you can scroll down to the bottom here and you can save this search. And you'll see when I do it that it's a search that I perform quite often. I keep making a spelling mistake. Right, so let's save that search. The beauty of that is when you come into the MyProtel next time and you want to have a look and say, I wonder what's happening in Glaxo, you can very easily access your saved searches. And very quickly you can click on Glaxo, your results are there immediately. And if we have put any projects into the system since you last logged in which meet your criteria, it will automatically populate this filter for you. So you don't have to spend time going and looking for them, you'll find them very quickly by running a search. So I'm just going to show one more search for you just so you can get a feel for how you can actually break the data down. So I'm now interested in Scottish distillery projects. So I'm going to choose Scotland and I'm going to choose distillery. And again, I'm only interested in projects that we consider to be active, which is pre-sanctioned and sanctioned. And again, I'm going to run that search. Okay, there are 22 results. That's all I've got time to do today, so I just want to save that search and I'll come back to it later. So I'm going to give it a name. I'm just going to call it Scottish Distilleries. Save this search, and again, we have another search which we can access here or through the home page. And very quickly, excusing the spelling mistake, we can actually view that search. So we've covered volumes, filtering, grading, saving, tracking and archiving. All useful things that will hopefully help you to actually break down that volume of data into sort of small quantities that will work much easier for you. All underutilised, I believe, but all very, very helpful. So what I want to do now is spend a few minutes just talking to you about key terminology that we include. So again, this is driven by questions we get asked frequently. So I'm going to open a project, doesn't matter which one, but I just want to spend a few minutes just going through a few items of terminology that I get asked about when I'm talking to you all. The first one being sensitivity. We have 3 grades of sensitivity. We have high, low, and none. Sensitivity, if it has high, it really is a red flag, and you should respect that it's high, and that type of lead should not be dismissed or worried about, but it should be dealt with in a different way, in a more tentative way. If you actually rang that client and said, oh, I understand you've got a project for such and such, the chances are they would deny it, or they would close the door in your face. The reason for sensitivity, a number of reasons. It could just be in the case of some companies like Britvic, Pepsi, Coca-Cola. They don't like us disclosing their plans, so we will put highly sensitive. It could be in the case of pharmaceutical, animal research. It may be that with a number of site mergers, there could be local job losses and it hasn't been announced as yet. So obviously we've tagged a sensitivity to it. If we put highly sensitive on there, it really is highly sensitive, and whilst it shouldn't put you off, it should be respected. If you have any concerns about sensitivity and feel you would like to know a little bit more about why a project's sensitive before you made your approach, you are very welcome to fire through an inquiry to us, and our team or our researchers will speak to you and tell you why that project is why it's highly sensitive. If it is highly sensitive, just to say, it means that you won't find that data elsewhere in the public domain. So in actual fact, they are, in my opinion, the sexiest projects that we have available. Okay, so high sensitivity, low and none. Different approaches for each, but hopefully that's explained a little bit as to why high sensitivity is a banner. Value. Just wanted to explain again, people sort of say to me, you know, I've seen that McVitie's are spending 50 million, but your project only says it's 15 million. Why is there a difference? We focus on the equipment within the building. We don't focus on the building, the car park, the lighting. We are purely focusing on the equipment within the building. So our values will sometimes be different to those that you may be made aware of elsewhere. Status. Here we have 5 categories of status. We have pre-sanction, which is pre-capex approval. We have sanctioned, which is capex has been approved. We have on hold, whilst the project is still active, it is currently on hold. Planning permission may have been denied, so a project is indefinitely put on hold. And we have completed and cancelled, which are pretty self-explanatory. Not terminology, but just a little feature I just wanted to make you aware of. We include a job title and a project role to hopefully so you can identify which of these contacts is most relevant to you. And if you are using Outlook, you do have the function here to download the contact details straight into your Outlook account via a vCard. Right, now to the bottom of the project, we give you background, project and scope. Scope is not a technical specification. We are not going to list absolutely everything that is happening on that project, but we hope that there is enough information here coupled with the background and the project data we include that will enable you to identify if this lead is for you. So for example, in this case, we include liquid handling and storage. The storage is most likely going to be vessels. It will also include pipe work, pumps, etc. If in the case of CIP, we wouldn't list CIP set, pipe work, pump, CIP heads. We would only include the terminology CIP. So hopefully there is enough within that scope that will identify, coupled with the background of what the company are making, that would identify for you if this project is for you. Okay, I think we're on the home straight now, guys. We've covered tracking, archiving, saving, a little bit about terminology. You should now be equipped with all the data you need to use the information. How you use it is something that you will obviously discuss with your team. But there are just a few things I just wanted to run through with you, which were there is more than one way to use this data. A lot of people tend to focus on just giving this to their sales team. If you have a marketing department and if you are doing campaigns, 80% of our project contacts now have email addresses. So your marketing guys could be utilising this data to do campaigns. It's good marketing intelligence as a whole. So when you're out and about in the market, it's good to have that knowledge in your back pocket of what's happening generally. Obviously, your sales guys will be using it to actually make phone calls. If there's a particular site or group that you're interested in, you can actually get the intelligence off this site of what they've done, what they're doing. It will hopefully enable you to work with that site, not necessarily on the project that we're disclosing, but it will hopefully help you to build the relationships to work with that site. So there are a lot of other ways that you can actually be utilising Protel and adding value, not just by picking up the phone on that particular project. Right, we really are on the home straight now, because we're now going to go to the section which is measuring and monitoring. Every company will have its own reasons for subscribing to Protel. It could be you're entering a new sector. It could be that the majority of your business is from a select number of customers, so you may actually have 90% of your business is existing and 10% is new, and you actually want to change that balance to 80-20. Whatever your reason, it is important that everybody understands what that is and what your expectations are from using it. The first thing everybody always says to me is, we want to get an order from it. At the very least, we want a return on investment, but there are so many other ways to measure its success. So you may decide that you want to have a number of face-to-face meetings. As I mentioned earlier about working with groups and sites and building relationships, it may be that you decide you want to actually have a number of new contacts and relationships. It could be you utilise the data to help you get on approved supply lists. You might measure it in number of tenders received. And also, if your marketing team are doing email campaigns, how effective were those campaigns? Did that lead to inquiries? Presumably, if it did, that should be attributed to the success of Protel. So we would recommend that as a minimum, you have a tick list of agreed expectations that you can effectively monitor. All your users will then understand what role it fills, what part it plays within their business and development sales process, and everybody will be clear about what they're going to achieve and their expectations. So, as a quick recap, we have covered tracking, archiving, saving searches, obviously filtering. We've gone through some terminology, particularly dealing with sensitivities, scope, and obviously we've also just briefly talked about measuring and monitoring. So hopefully some of what I've told you today will be helpful. Jack is now going to take over, and hopefully you've been sending lots of juicy questions into us. So over to Jack. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Debbie. My apologies again, guys. I think we were broadcasting for 5 or 10 minutes or so, and our microphone had, shall we say, fallen over. So we had a few little technical difficulties there. So I'll just reiterate what I said at the start. We are moving on to a Q&A section now for probably up until midday, hopefully. So if you do have any questions on any aspect of your subscription, be that MyProtel specific or more sales-based, approaches, methods, then please use the question pane on the right-hand side of the screen to submit those to us now. And we're just going to have a bit of a panel-based discussion. So yeah, anything you want us to get to, then please feel free to submit that. So we've had some questions coming in, and we've got a question here from Greg, which is sensitivity. There are 3 categories. We understand high sensitivity, but what about the other 2 categories? So Debbie, do you want to talk a bit more about the other 2 categories we have, low and none?
Low will mean we've obviously met some sensitivity along the way, but there will be information generally out there and it's not highly sensitive, and none is that we've actually met no sensitivity at all. The chances are if you Googled that project, you would find a basic press release, for example. So there is some data in the public domain and we're just tagging it as meeting no sensitivity. You tend to find it falls into categories. So you tend to find that if you are in food, drink, pharmaceutical, you'll see a lot more sensitive projects. If you are in energy, because of legislation, government funding, etc., you will find that a lot of the opportunities actually are tagged as low or no sensitivity just by the very nature of the sector that we're within. So it does tend to be sector-based rather than actually just project-specific. So yes, highly sensitive is the red flag. Low and none, you can be more relaxed about. But even with low sensitivity, we have met a little bit of sensitivity along the way.
Brilliant, thank you, Debbie. Okay, another question in here. Can you export project info for a company to Excel? I think that's Debbie. Do you want to come in on that one?
Yes, we can very easily. One of the functions we have within MyProtel is the ability to export data so that it's compatible with your CRM. It's something that we do for a number of clients at the moment. So it's bespoke to you. So you tell us what you want, we export it. We can do initial data dumps, and then we can do weekly or monthly updates for you, totally based on your criteria. So if you are interested in, for example, just seeing all pre-sanctioned projects within a certain criteria and you want a number of columns of data, that's what we can do. So if you imagine looking at one of our projects, any element of data on that project can be exported into an Excel spreadsheet if you would like it to be.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I'll just add to that, if what you're looking for is kind of a step down from that full export, then we do have a method by which you can export just contact data if that's all you need in a CSV format. So there's a couple of tiers of options there, but what I would say is contact your account manager, be that Debbie or Nina, and they'll be able to talk you through all the options and come up with a solution that hopefully integrates well with any systems you've got, be those CRM systems. And indeed, if you don't have a CRM system, they can talk through ways to set up a basic system, be that as simple as a spreadsheet, through which you can track the effectiveness and assign a bit of accountability to each individual project lead. Okay. Yeah, so someone's asked, is that data export included in your subscription cost? The answer is the basic level, which just covers the contact data, which will do a lot of individual use cases absolutely fine. That is included in your subscription, and the way to access that is through the search screen. There's a couple of drop-down options after you've completed a search. The options to download as PDFs or to export contact data to Excel. The option Debbie was talking about has a small fee associated with it, and that's really just to reflect the development time that it takes our team to get that set up. So again, contact us for that, and we can go through those options. Okay, excellent. We've got loads of questions coming in now, guys. That's excellent. Okay. Can you download contact info to Lotus Notes as well as Outlook? I believe you can. The vCard file that comes out from the contact download option will work with Lotus Notes as well as Outlook. You just need to import that vCard file in and it will set up a contact record for you. It's also worth noting that if you want to deal with contacts more en masse, then you can also import CSV lists of contacts and project data into your Outlook or Lotus Notes as well. Okay, nice meaty question for you here, Debbie. How would you suggest we approach highly sensitive projects to get the best results? Any thoughts?
As I said earlier, don't be put off by the sensitivity. No, that's the first thing. I would go through and determine whether you've done business with that site before. So do you have an existing contact on site? Have you done work with them before? I would spend a lot of time doing your homework. I think maybe going off spec a little bit, but a common mistake people make is they see a lead, whether it be highly sensitive or not, and they just pick up the phone. And in my opinion, you would never visit a customer without putting a bit of time and effort in. So I think it's all about preparation. So don't be put off by the sensitivity. Think about how you can actually use your skills as salespeople to do a more tentative approach, whether that be via email or speaking to the procurement guys rather than directly going to the project guys. But as I say, do your homework first. If they are a client that you've already got an existing contact with, perhaps you could actually be speaking to them first and allow them to point you to the right direction. So yeah, just invest time, but I suppose don't be put off. I mean, we have a number of people that say, oh, we don't touch sensitive projects, which from our, we try and get those sensitive projects, the below radar ones that you won't find elsewhere, because you won't find them elsewhere. And to think that they're not being used would be very sad. So we hope that you don't feel put off by highly sensitive, but that you actually think about alternative ways. I mean, a lot of people prefer to send emails before phoning. Either is right, whatever works for you. If you want to send emails, and if you ever want us to run our eyes over anything like that, Jack's your man. He's always happy to look at things that that you're sending, to actually sort of see whether it's something that you want to be doing or sending, or how we would recommend that you word things. So, but don't be put off. Invest time. Look at the timeliness of the project. Is it something you should be dealing with straight away, or can you do your homework and make contact with them in a couple of weeks? Or take all of that into consideration. Consider everything, and then make your approach. But please don't be put off. Please.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think just to add to that, a highly sensitive project for us, it's an opportunity. It's a positive thing. Do not be put off. You just have to adapt your approach slightly, and perhaps be a little bit more subtle initially. We wouldn't suggest picking the phone up straight away, kind of barreling in there, because they're going to be asking questions more so about how do you know about this information, rather than talking about your products and about what you can do for them and the solutions you can provide, which obviously isn't the best way to get that sales dialogue off the ground. What we would say is, consider alternative methods. If the project is very highly sensitive, think about other methods you can use to make that initial approach. Debbie's covered email, which I think is an excellent way to build that introduction, but use the knowledge you have of the project as your ace in the hole. Keep it up your sleeve. There's no need to mention the source of the information. There's no need to mention the project specifically in almost any case. There's very little reason to do that. And the reason for that is they don't know that you know about the project. So use that to skew the arrangement in your favor. And the way to do that is really to introduce your company as you would for any new client relationship that you were trying to form. And there are a lot of tools available to do that sort of thing. One that I'm a big fan of is social selling, which we haven't really got time to go into in too much detail today, but that would involve a tool like LinkedIn, for example. Now, you may have heard of their in-mail system, which people have varying opinions on the effectiveness, but you look at your existing network. Who do you know that can get you an introduction to someone on site who's working on that project? Build that relationship, and then start talking about the solutions that you can bring to any projects that they happen to have in the pipeline. Use that knowledge of that highly sensitive project as your trigger to start the planning, to start building that introduction. Leverage your existing network. Oftentimes when a project is highly sensitive, that's fantastic. You've got lots of time to make that initial approach, but do not go barreling in, picking up the phone without maybe just stopping, pausing, thinking about ways that you can alter that approach to make it more appropriate for a project where there is going to be some reluctance to discuss details there. Okay. Excellent. We've got more questions coming in. Anything at all, guys, that you want to discuss? Be that what we're mentioning here about email contact, picking up the phone, any problems that you're facing at the moment, any challenges for yourselves or for your team. Send a question and we'll discuss it. Feel free to submit anything. So, could Protel offer some standard or typical email templates for subscribers to use when contacting potential customers? I would say probably on this one, we wouldn't be interested in providing kind of boilerplate content for your emails, because email marketing is most effective when it's personalized, individual, and doesn't seem kind of off the shelf. You want to be building a long-term personal relationship that will give you business both now and in the future with this prospect. So what we would say is probably en masse email campaigns where you're using a template that you would send out to 20, 30 prospects at a time, I would suggest perhaps isn't the best way to go. Use something that's a bit more tailored. And again, that's the beauty of having the bulletins and the early stage notice of what's going on, is that you can actually tailor that email content based on the scope of the project, the stage it's at, the schedule, obviously without mentioning specific details or the source, but you can use that to guide what you're going to say. So, if it was me, I would be sending individual highly targeted emails to each individual contact. And while I think perhaps if you're looking to do more of a PR based exercise, more of an en masse type email campaigning effort, I think that's a really good tool, incidentally. If you are just getting the name out there with some generic content, maybe a brochure that you've prepared, or some testimonials or case studies, those types of content can be really effective actually for warming up a contact on site before you make that first contact. But what I would say is, if it's an opportunity that you've graded very high and you see it as a must-win deal, then spend the time, making that individual email introduction. Send some case studies for similar projects that you've already worked on that match the specification of the project you're targeting, for example. That type of thing. That's what I mean. So, yeah, I would say email templates are great. We're all about efficiency here. Efficiency of approach is really important, but you've got to balance efficiency with effectiveness. And I think an individual tailored approach is, in most cases, superior. Okay, let's see what else we've got coming in. Something for you here, Debbie. Is it possible for us to have additional users on our MyProtel subscription?
Yes, I mean, we do have, when you place an order with us, you agree a number of users, but if you actually want to add on users, you can contact us. And on that, something that I think people aren't aware of often is that you all have your own number of sectors and regions switched on, and within your subscription, you can all have access to different things. So, for example, if you have a guy that has just joined you that's focusing on Scotland, we can give him access to just the Scottish information. So speak to us by all means about additional users, and we can discuss that with you. And also, if you are part of a large team and your team want varying access, that's something that we can do. No problem at all. So yes, just give myself or Nina a call, or pop us through an email and we can have a look at that. And on that note, when you have new users, things like we're doing today, the webinar, one of the reasons we do things like this is because often we don't get to speak to all of our users. Often we get to speak to a main contact, and it's you users that actually give us the most feedback and that we want to try and reach. So as you want to switch on new users, if they need any training, then myself or Nina are very happy to do walkthroughs of MyProtel, actually to encourage and to help and inspire your team to actually utilize the information in front of them, because we have lots of you using it and we may only speak to one person in your company unless you contact us. So as I say, yes, you can have additional users, yes, they can have bespoke access within your subscription, and Nina and I are always very, very happy to take some time with your new users, to work with you, to get them trained up and to actually be utilising the data in the way that you want them to be. So
fantastic. Okay, Nina, I'm going to bring you in here.
Okay.
Question come through: how can we incorporate social media into our sales process?
Well, I think social media is a good way to actually sort of take the pulse of what's going on in an industry. You could decide there's different channels, so everybody must have heard about Twitter. There's obviously Facebook, but for the sort of sectors we cover, I'd say LinkedIn would be your preferred channel. Exactly. That's a great way to connect with existing clients, but also potential clients. And that's a great way to offer a window on your company and your products. So the mistake that some people might do sometimes is just they talk at people and they just like sharing updates on new machines and what they can do for you, etc. But the fact is that you have to listen a lot on social media, and you can actually find out what people are talking about, what is the burning questions on everybody's lips at the moment, or new trends. So use social media to be in the conversation, and then you can actually place or answer any questions, and it's a subtle way to talk about your products rather than just having a description of your machines. So if everybody's talking about new regulations coming into place, You can then add your voice to the debate, raise awareness of your brand, and it's a great way to open relationships.
Fantastic, yeah. And I think just to add to that, as Nina highlighted, there are a lot of options available to you when it comes to social media, but again, it's about efficiency and effectiveness for me. And the industry we're in, LinkedIn has got to be that priority. It's got to be probably the place where you spend most of your time, because it's going to be where most of your target audience, those end user contacts, they're going to be hanging out effectively. So, I'm more than happy to talk to anyone who wants to get their guys on LinkedIn and using it effectively. That's something that I believe is really, really effective, and it's one of the best ways we're seeing. With all of the difficulty surrounding cold calling and no names policies, highly trained gatekeepers, all of those challenges we're all very well aware of. LinkedIn is a little beacon of light, I think, in some ways that can add another dimension to your sales approach. So, any extra information on that, then just reach out to us.
One final thing to add on LinkedIn, for those of you who aren't aware, Protel have a couple of groups on LinkedIn. Which is well worth you actually linking with us and keeping an eye on those groups. So when we're researching projects, there are a few which for whatever reason don't fit our criteria, so we decide not to publish and put on MyProtel, but they're still validated. We have a contact name, we have a specific piece of equipment somebody might be looking for, and we actually include those in the group. So we just give those out and sort of say, here you are, this isn't going to make full project status, but here's a lead. And as a result of doing that, we had one a little while ago actually, which was an oven for a bakery project, and one of our subscribers actually picked up the order. I think it was about 100 million or something, not 100 million, 100,000. That would have been good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's really impressive.
Big old oven, that, yeah.
So yeah, it was £100,000 order, and they picked it up via a lead that we put on LinkedIn, which was just didn't meet our criteria because it was too narrow. We gave a name, a site, bit of information, and they followed it up and actually closed the order. So do link with us on LinkedIn. Nina and Jack spend a lot of time putting up useful articles, blogs, etc. So there's a lot of information on LinkedIn, which I think for probably a lot of our subscribers don't know is there. So yes, particularly blogs and things. So have a look.
Yeah, we're publishing lots of trend type articles. They're all available for free on our website, protelprojects.com/blog. There's stacks of information up there. We just published a really in-depth article on the Irish processing industry and its sort of future outlook for 2016 and 17. So if you do have any interest in Ireland, I'd recommend you take a look at that. We've also got articles covering UK chemical, UK energy industries, pharmaceutical, food, drink, all of the stuff is up there. So if you are looking to start planning, knowing where to put your resources, that sort of thing, looking to prioritize perhaps different industries, then there's a really good, quick, easy to digest rundown of the main trends that we're seeing from our boots on the ground. So feel free to take a look. As I say, it's all just up there on the blog, ready to read. Okay, another question. How can I target more advanced projects? Debbie, do you want to jump in on this one? I assume that's sort of more advanced along the timeline, along the schedule.
Okay, I would imagine that yes, you're interested in looking at a particular time frame. So that can be done through the search screen. So the screen we looked at earlier when we were saving searches, down the bottom of that screen there are you can do some scheduling. So you can say I'm interested in looking at projects where site start is Q2 2016 or procurement start is Q3 2016. So you can spend a bit of time actually looking at that scheduled data, and obviously the projects will be filtered accordingly. So yeah, I would do that via MyProtel under the detailed project search at the bottom. And again, yeah, that's definitely
I think that's definitely Debbie mentioned it during her presentation, but it's kind of getting away from that reliance on latest project updates and actually starting to interrogate some of the project data, drilling down a bit more into things that perhaps or projects rather, that are a bit more of an immediate prospect for you. Using that procurement start date advanced search feature, for example, is something I would recommend. I think that can be really effective for looking at, what's coming up in the next quarter or next 6 months. What do we need to be prioritizing? Because you're going to need to act on those ones pretty quickly, and if not, then perhaps they may fall through the cracks for you. So again, about prioritization. Okay. How can we coordinate our efforts across multiple users? So, Debbie, do you want to come in on the admin side of things, I guess?
Yes, there is a group admin function on MyProtel. So one of you can be an admin subscriber, which basically gives you, everybody else is linked to that account, and as an admin user you can actually see who is tracking what project. So one of the benefits of that is if you are regionally based and you suddenly see that your Northwest guy is tracking a London project, and so is your London guy, and shouldn't be, then it highlights for you who's actually tracking which project. So if there's potentially a risk of double handling within your organization, it would highlight any issues there. So the group admin function is quite powerful for that, so you can see who has access to what, and also, as I say, primarily the tracked projects. So it would tell you, as I say, if there's 2 or 3 of your users tracking the same project. Whilst that might be perfectly okay, it might also ring alarm bells for you. So it might be that you want to actually look to see why and follow up accordingly. So you can have more than one admin user if required. So if you divide your business into different areas and you want to have more than one user, you can. But as I say, it just gives you a bit of knowledge of when people logged in and what they're tracking, just to, not as a big brother, but just to actually make sure that there isn't that overlap of efforts and everybody's focusing on what they should be. So yeah, that's a good little function that a lot of you might not be aware of.
Yeah, so if you want to adjust who is the administrator on your user group and on your subscription, then just get in touch with your account manager again, and they can get that adjusted if you need to. Just let us know. All right. So I think something I think is a good question here. What do I do if contacts listed aren't, well, I suppose, yeah, the question is, what do we do if the contacts listed aren't the ones we're interested in? And again, at the risk of sounding like a broken record here, I would suggest LinkedIn would be your first port of call there. Using a bit of Google jiggery pokery, it's possible to really interrogate LinkedIn's contact database for names. There are a few little tricks to do that, but the easiest one is to put in a search string on Google, which is to type site and then colon and then linkedin.com, and then just stick in the job title or job role that you're interested in and the name of the end user company, for example, or contractor company, whatever it is. And then you might, if they're on LinkedIn, you'll start to see the names listed there. But if you want to talk more in detail about that, then just get in touch with us and we can run you through a few of those tricks. Okay, well, I think we've taken up quite a lot of your time, but thanks very much for everyone who's come in today. As I say, we will send the recording out afterwards along with the slides. But yeah, all that remains to say is thank you very much for your time. Thanks to Debbie.
Thank you for listening, everybody.
And thanks to Nina.
Thank you very much.
And thank you all for joining us. And yeah, any questions, anything else you want to discuss, please do pick up the phone, or send us an email. We're here to help. We love talking through all of these really challenging different situations and getting it working, getting the system working for you. So that's what it's all about. So please do drop us a line if you need any help at all. Okay, thanks very much, everyone. We'll speak to you soon.